Today's episode is presented by Lodestar, the fee experts.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Lending Leaders. Our guest this week is Todd Hougaard, CEO at BLITS, looking to revolutionize communication in the title industry. So, Todd, thanks for coming on. I know we've been friends for a while, been kind of journeying through the industry for a while, and you've always been kind of at the forefront of this communication piece. So really excited to chat with you today about it.
Happy to be here.
Great. So tell us about your journey into the mortgage industry. I think it started somewhere on the land record space, right? From what I remember.
Yeah, it actually predated that. In college, I was doing this cool new technology called satellite image processing, which was truly satellite, right, from NASA. But that evolved into computer mapping and then building maps for cities and counties, which evolved into doing software for county government. So not just map, but tax roll software, which is where I learned what a county recorder even was and what they did. So, yeah, so I did the local government, learning land records. From that evolved into this crazy idea at the time, which was I think we could record documents electronically over the internet. So that was the beginning, right? We did the very first e-recording out here in Utah. So we started doing e-recording, which grew up and went nationwide. Then that got me into the industry. So that's my start. Was started off doing on the land record side.
Yeah. And then what's kept you in the industry? Continuing to work through all of these types of problems.
It's a fantastic industry, and when you get to know the people that are actually making the loans and doing the closing, these people love what they do because they really are passionate about the fact they're helping people buy a house, right? Get into a home. So it's very rewarding to work in an industry where people are passionate about the work that they're doing and feeling like they're making a difference in people's lives.
I feel like that's a great point because it's easy to miss the impact of working these transactions on people's lives and how big of a deal it is to folks buying homes potentially for the first time, because you can get desensitized to it every day.
It's real and it's palpable, right? If you look at how exciting it is when somebody's buying their first home, I mean, it's a big milestone. So I just love the industry and really all parts of it.
So tell us about the problem you're trying to solve at BLITS.
Yeah, so it started off, so the foundation of the problem is one that's been around for a very long time. And like many people in tech in the industry, we've been working on it in one way or another, which is how do the different companies work together to actually get a deal done? And so I'm like the others, right? I built websites and we built portals and then we, built lots of integrations, all trying to make it fit better and tighter together as an industry so that we can be more efficient. And when we chose to get BLITS started, it was really looking at saying still after all the work and all the tech, we're incredibly inefficient with using email as a primary communication tool. And as we looked at that at the beginning, it was like all about economics and about how much it was costing, because you'd go out and visit, a title agent or a loan officer or processor, and it's not unusual that they were getting 300 or 400 emails every day, which is like one email a minute. It's like, seriously? This isn't processing loans. This is processing email. And that was sort of the fundamental is, it's just such a big problem and such a stuck on efficiency to have people spending, Microsoft says that 60% of employee time is spent in some form of communication. So if we're spending all that time there, it's just taking time away. So that was where we started. The more recent changes that are really driving us now is cybersecurity, in that it's no secret about phishing and business email compromise and wire fraud and all the nasty stuff that happens, which is ultimately all a result of the fact of how we communicate, right? We're using email, which we all know kind of crappy, and we all know no matter how hard we work it, still was never designed to be secure. So that's really the driver. Start off as economic, which is still there and very much a part of what we're doing. But right now, the real driver in people's minds is, look, with AI and deep fakes and essentially weaponizing AI. We've got to do some things different than we've done in the past.
Yeah, I'm daily amazed at the sophistication of some of these emails that come through and just the frequency of that. Even now, I get employees constantly emailing me, showing me messages from Jim Paolino that they got.
It's everywhere, and everybody that I talk to across the industry, across the whole country, when you start talking about this as a subject, every one of them has day to day of what they're experiencing now, but they almost always have a horror story as well of knowing someone that was actually defrauded, somehow was harmed by it. Sometimes a family member, sometimes it was actually in their business.
Right.
So it's not like a mysterious sort of thing, but it's very real and top of mind for people right now.
So obviously looking to have a portal or a system that replaces email on a technical level is doable, right? Well, what about some of the business challenges of this? Like what are the types of stakeholders that you're talking to make something like this happen to ultimately change the way that the industry does business by and large?
Yeah, so I think the one thing that, just for clarity for people, email as a whole is not going to go away. The part that we're trying to carve off is saying the transactional email. So today we have transactional email and marketing email just combined together. And that's, how the bad actors are able to get in. So it's really trying to carve off the transactional communications that are out there. And the challenge that we see with that is not, to your point, it's not the technology that's difficult, right? We've seen cloud computing and we've seen the ability to scale the technology. The real challenge is that we're trying to do a changeover of an industry that's very interrelated. There's a lot of stakeholders here. So the real challenge is, how do you get the people together in order to say, look, we're gonna come together and we're actually gonna make a change in how we do business. And yet every time you touch one party in that, they have a whole bunch of other people they work with, right? Every one lender is going to have a bunch of settlement agents that they work with. Talk to the settlement agent, they got a bunch of lenders that they work with. And depending on where you are in the country, they might have more surveyors that are helping, connect them, or they've got real estate agents. So
even on one transaction, I'm just thinking of it, right? From our title company, you have the title company, the mortgage broker, the lender, the seller's realtor, the seller themselves, the buyer, the notary, if you're working with a notary, right? And they're all needing to communicate.
Yep. That's
all time sensitive.
The challenge. Yeah. And everybody's in a hurry. So that's the primary challenge, just from a tactical side, is you've got to get the people to work. The other side of that is that we're talking about a little different of an idea here that's taken a while for people to start to understand. One of the things we've learned is that the way to talk about it is to talk about it actually as a collaboration rail. And in our industry, we've heard of payment rails. A few years ago, it was just, wire was the big topic. But with the real-time payment systems being, referring to themselves as a rail, that's got people thinking about, well, maybe there's a different way to think about what we're doing. So now it's not a portal or like a super portal. It's to think about it as a rail. And when it's a rail, then what you do is you're simply telling people, you need to get plugged into the rail.
Yep.
So it's not trying to go sell everybody. It's that, no, you need to do this to the standard, and the rail is dictating the standard, just like payment networks do. This is dictating a standard whereby you can plug in all those parties you mentioned, right? You can plug in the title agent, the real estate agent, the attorney. And that way you're collaborating to a standard instead of trying to just sell a piece of tech out there to people.
Which was really the dream with Mismo when we started working together, right? That there was a uniform closing data set. They'd all follow the same standard. And then that kind of just, got bastardized from there.
Yeah, it never got, it got half of it, got the standard defined, but it never got to the execution. We're taking that side of the execution and saying, look, we're gonna plug all of the industry systems, not us directly, but together, we're going to plug everybody's system into this rail so that everybody's able to, as long as you adhere to the standards in the banking world,
right?
And you can plug into the ACH network, for example, you can do ACH transactions.
Yeah,
same
the
thing
Swift payment system, right?
Yeah, Swift payment system.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, look at any of the payment rails, right? They've got.
I've never heard. Yeah, sorry, I've never heard the term super portal until we spoke today too. That's pretty cool though. It's tough to compete with that. So
yeah. Well, and the approach here for the next little bit is there's not really a portal component. There's not a UI, right? There's not a portal anybody can go log in to BLITS. It's a direct connection between the our partners, the technology companies that are out there, that their systems get plugged into the rail. So
I don't know, and that makes a lot of sense. Right?
Yeah, we're not doing the super portal.
We talked a little bit about this before the call, but lots of changes going on in 2025 affecting real estate, affecting mortgage, affecting title. What are you keeping the closest eye on?
The one that top of mind for me is it going to be different this year than it was last year, which is interest rate, because that just impacts so much of what's going on. Affordability is just a gigantic issue. So keeping an eye on that, I think with the new administration in place and what's happening with regulation or deregulation, I think that's one that's going to ripple for all of through this year. I think there will be some implications of that. And then the other one that's probably top of mind for me is what's happening with the cybersecurity. I think AI we talked about it a lot last year, and we were all sort of trying to get our heads wrapped around what it was. I think we're going to have more of that, which has huge potential for promise of doing awesome things to help. But I think the dangers are also very real with that, which we're going to have to confront that at the same time.
Right. There's problems in the industry that seem great for AI, document intake, underwriting. All of these things are designed for a machine to do.
Absolutely.
But they also have a lot of sensitive data that could be a big problem.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think that's it. And then the other one is privacy. I think that's the other one that lingers in the back of my mind is somehow when there's fraud, data is getting leaked out there somehow so that they're able to exploit that.
Yep.
And I think that's one that we're going to have to keep an eye on, because I think the regulators broadly understand privacy as a consumer topic, and we're just not as tight as we need to be there.
Yep. Well, for one thing, it's going to be an interesting year, right? There's always something. That's part of what I love about this industry, but this is no exception.
Right. It's never dull.
No, not at all. So, I kind of asked this earlier, but we always ask our guests, what's your lodestar? What keeps you going day in, day out? You're saying grandkid number 5 on the way, but you're still starting a business again, doing this, like back at it. Like what gets you out of bed every day?
It's a fair question. I guess my first side would be, like you said, my family, right? First and foremost, I'm a family guy, and that's what gets me up and going. But the question there about what keeps getting me up at this stage in my career, right? I've done startups. I've done it. My wife actually sometimes asks me that same question that you're asking. Why are you doing this? And truthfully, I'm kind of the point that I'm looking at the industry, and I've worked in title, I've built software for lenders, I've worked in county government. I've got a perspective now of how all the different parts work together at a very detailed level. And I've developed a perspective of how I think we can actually make some changes that make the industry better and safer for consumers. And it's such a great industry, and I think it's an important industry. And so what gets me up in the morning is knowing that there's some really hard problems that people that have been around for a while have got to lean into and to pour the energies into trying to actually make change, because it's tough to make change. And so, that's what's getting me up is I think we've got to make some changes for the industry as a whole.
That's great. Well, Todd, thanks so much for coming on. It was great to have you as a guest, and everyone, thanks for listening.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Jim.
Have a good one.